After the Hearthstone nerfs, many of your opponents will be playing Quest Mage, and in this video, I have two decks that will help you hit Legend after the nerfs. One destroys mages, one dominates Paladin, and we're starting right now. The first deck up is Aggro Druid, and for those of you who find this content useful, make sure that you give this video a like and also subscribe to the channel, because not only do I post videos like this, but I stream live on YouTube and battle test decks just like these. With Aggro Druid, the games are pretty quick. So as you can see right there, you're about 60% or better to win against every single class except Mage and Shaman. Mage is a 47.1% win rate, and Shaman comes in at a 54.7% win rate. You're dominating all the other classes, and you're pretty much going to pull out a lot of wins, and this is a great deck to get you to Legend if you're not there already. Before we get into the mulligans for this deck, I just want you to know that I do have a counter for Mage, so stick around because we'll be getting into that one shortly. One of the things that's nice about Aggro Druid is that it's cheap. You only have one legendary, 4 epics, 12 rares, and 13 commons. The mulligans for this deck are Razormane Battleguard, Vibrant Squirrel, Peasant, Oracle of Elune, Bar Watchpost, and Bone Chewer Brawler. One of the things that I like most about this deck is that it goes to work on Paladin, but it does kind of struggle against Mage. But one of the keys of this deck is putting a lot of pressure on your opponent. You want to put as many minions as you can out on the board, always putting them to a decision. You almost never want to get greedy with this deck and wait around for combos. One of the things that you have to do though is make sure that if you put a minion up on the board, it's not easily killed or traded into. It's not always that simple just to flood the board with minions and just see what happens. You're always giving your opponent something to think about on each turn. Even if you play something like Oracle of Elune on an empty board, they pretty much have to deal with every single card that you have out on the board. You'll find some success if your opponent's always spending their mana on the defensive stand rather than on the offense. So this deck definitely causes a lot of mayhem for your opponents. It makes them think. The best combo outside of Arbor Up with this deck is at 6 mana or 5 mana with the coin. You could play Elune, then Razormane, Greybow, or Teacher's Pet. What happens is when you play down Elune and then Razormane, you get 2 Razormanes, you also get 2 Greybows, or 2 Teacher's Pet. So it's a pretty sick board that you could spread out and go wide on your opponent, and it definitely causes a lot of mayhem for them. Especially if Greybow sticks around and starts putting it on the other minions, it's just going to cause a lot of problems, and make sure that you always have that board presence that you really need with this deck. There are many times where your opponent just looks at the board and sees 2 Greybows, or they see 2 Teacher's Pet and they just kind of concede because the deck is frustrating AF. You may not see Quest Shaman played as much after the nerfs and the buffs, but it's something to keep in mind is that you want to make sure that you don't give them easy targets for Perpetual Flame. Put up 4 health minions or minions with Divine Shield, and make sure that you just don't have a whole board of 3 health minions that they can kill easily. You also can't be afraid to trade minions to protect your peasants and your watchposts. Watchposts will cause a ton of problems for your opponents, and the peasants will draw you the cards that you need to continue to buff up your minions and put minions out on the board. As far as playing composting for draw, don't be afraid to put it on just 2 minions. As long as you get 2 cards from composting, you're in pretty good shape. It's great. 2 mana, draw 2, not bad. For me, the main reason why I play squirrels first over the peasant is because I do like to get the acorns into the deck, and when you get the acorns in your deck, you get to establish that board presence, and it can help you out in later turns. There'll be times where they'll kill your minions, and you've had composting on it, and then what happens is a squirrel will come out and then come back on the board. So it's just kind of like this wild thing where you just keep on spreading and go wide on your opponents, and it just causes a lot of pressure. It just makes it really hard for them to clear boards, and you always have something that you can buff up. So this deck is really about putting pressure on your opponent and making sure that you buff up your minions with Arbor Up. If you can get that, I don't see why you can't win a few games against all of the other classes and make your way up the ladder. I can't stress this enough, this deck does struggle a little bit against the Mage, it struggles a little bit against the Shaman, but everything else you're dominating. So you're going to be able to play pretty well and enjoy the ride. The next deck is Libram Paladin. This deck is an absolute monster because of cards like Alliance Bannerman, Variant King of Stormwind, and City Tax. The deck can be considered a bit expensive because it has 6 legendary, 4 epic, 4 rare, and 16 common cards. So let's talk about the win rates for Libram Paladin against your opponents. Let's start with Mage. You have a 61.7% win rate against Mage. If you're seeing a lot of mages on the ladder, this is the deck to play. It also plays well against everything else with its lowest win rate against Paladin, which is a 57.1%. Everything else is in the 60s or near it. The mulligans for this deck are Aldor Attendant, Knight of Anointment, Alliance Bannerman, Far Watch Post, and Murgle McGurgle. So if you're up against an aggro deck and have Alliance of Bannerman in your hand and Bleed Master Samaru, you might as well just keep both. This way you can buff it up and clear some early aggression from your opponents. Besides buffing up minions, board clear is just one of the strengths of this deck. Definitely one of the best board clears is Lord Barrow and City Tax. It will clear out everything and give you the health that you need to continue to play in the late game. This deck is an absolute blast to play. It does everything right, and it will definitely help you win some games and make you get to legend. All right, there you have it, everybody. These are the 2 best decks in the game. Make sure you go lethal on that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.